Court proceedings can be very expensive and time-consuming. For this reason, it's a good idea to try and come to an agreement about your financial settlement outside of these proceedings. Negotiations between you and your spouse can and should be undertaken before you go to court and ask a judge to decide on your settlement. It can be helpful to write down what you would like your divorce settlement to look like. It may be that you will have to compromise in some areas in order to reach an agreement with your spouse, but having an ideal scenario to begin with can provide a starting point in your discussions. Consider how and where it would be best for you to begin negotiations with your spouse. Some couples feel comfortable talking face to face, where others prefer distance and would rather talk over the telephone. When you are in negotiations with your spouse, it's important to consider how a judge would decide your settlement if you were in court proceedings. This will give you a framework to work within and will help you to think what a fair settlement would look like. Any agreement that you come to with your spouse will need to be made into a court order, so you should ensure that you understand what a judge can actually order so that you do not come to an agreement which cannot be legally enforced. A judge will usually start with a 50-50 split in mind, but there are factors which can influence this, especially if there are children involved. Yes, it's always a good idea to see a solicitor, at least once throughout the process, so that you can obtain legal advice and make sure you are getting a fair and enforceable settlement. You may find that you and your spouse cannot reach an agreement, or it's simply too stressful to talk to each other. In this situation, a solicitor can negotiate with your spouse's solicitor on your behalf. Some people would rather go straight to solicitor negotiations and not negotiate with their spouse directly. Complex finances can benefit from solicitor negotiations. If you or your spouse are high net worth individuals with international assets or investments or otherwise complex finances, it's advisable to speak to a specialist solicitor who can advise you and negotiate on your behalf. You can stop court proceedings at any time before the final hearing if you reach an agreement with your spouse regarding your financial settlement. Having a good understanding of how a judge would decide your settlement if you were involved in court proceedings can be very helpful to provide a backdrop to your negotiations and to make sure you are not deciding on anything that cannot be legally enforced. Speaking with an experienced solicitor can also help to ensure that your negotiations are as effective as possible.